Welcome to NRM638 Python Scripting for GIS Applications. This week, the first week, will be the only week where we're going to work outside of ArcGIS, and you'll learn some basic Python scripting operations that are useful for working with files and working with subdirectories. So here's an example. What we want to do is have a Python script that will make a folder for the years 2010 through 2015. And then inside each of those annual folders, make the 12 monthly folders. So we have our Python script, and we run the Python script, and it creates these annual folders, and then inside each annual folder, it creates the 12 monthly folders. Here's another example. We've got some TIFF rasters, and we want to run a Python script that will rename these TIFF rasters into simpler names. So for example, this is a raster representing the mean annual precip in millimeters in Alaska for the decade 2000 to 2009. So we'll run this simple Python script to rename these to shorter file names. So then I run my script, and it renames, for example, the first TIFF raster to a shorter name, mean precip for the decade 1910, all the way down to our last raster, rename this long TIFF raster to a simpler name, mean precip decade 2000. Okay, another example is we've got a series of shapefiles in a subdirectory, and some of the shapefiles have an unknown spatial reference. So for example, points 1 has an unknown spatial reference. And basically with shapefiles, anytime there's an unknown spatial reference, typically it means there's no associated PRJ file that's a companion to the shapefile. So we can write a Python script to check for this. So our Python script basically looks at every shapefile in our subdirectory, and then it checks, does this shapefile have an associated PRJ file? And if it does, then spatial reference is defined. And if it does not have a .prj file, then the spatial reference is undefined. In our Python script, we will output to a little text file this information after it makes these checks. So basically we have our text file that's output by our Python script. So our Python script outputs to this little text file for each shapefile in the subdirectory, whether it has a spatial reference or not. So if it had a spatial reference defined, it had a PRJ file associated with this shapefile. And if it does not have a PRJ file associated with the shapefile, then it has an undefined spatial reference. So this week you'll also learn how to read and write with text files. Okay, so let's get started with our first video session.